After crossing a different world, becoming an orc, step by step walking towards a familiar yet unfamiliar world. Keywords of the novel. The richest man in the world of orcs without a pop-up window, the richest man in the world of orcs. Download the complete TXT collection, and read the latest chapters of The Richest Man in the World of Orcs. Chapter 1. Newcomers in the Orcs World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Newcomers in the Orcs World. I can't go back. On his third day in this world, Li Jiangwen finally recognized reality and slept soundly at home. When he woke up, he realized that he had traveled through time and had become an orc. Standing by the clear river, looking at the tender face in the water, without fangs or horns. Is it a fake orc? I no longer had the panicked feeling I had on the first day of my visit. He doesn't want the bloodline awakening that the original owner longed for in his memory. It's okay if the awakening succeeds, but if it fails, just like the two brothers next to him, it's clearly a human body, but it's leaning against the animal's head. Thinking of this, he once again glanced at the Tauren next to him. Even with the memories of the original owner, knowing that they were friends who grew up playing, they still couldn't get used to it and felt uncomfortable. Charlotte, are you okay? The Tauren leaned his huge head towards him and held it high. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Li Jiangwen smiled bitterly and secretly made up his mind. Now he is Charlotte, and Charlotte is him. He was born in the 2000s, and his parents divorced when he was 5 years old. They both had families and despised him as a burden. From then on, he was no different from an orphan. Starting from a rural problem-solving expert, all the way to university, only my grandmother who has worked hard has accompanied me. My biggest dream in the past was to study hard, work hard, and make my grandmother proud of him. I would buy my grandmother her favorite big gold chain and let her live in a big house. However, after 6 months of working, his grandmother ran out of oil and did not give him the opportunity to be filial. After his grandmother passed away, he felt completely confused and unable to motivate himself to do anything. He simply quit his 996 job in Yangcheng, which required him to commute to Hell West Station every day, and went straight back to his hometown to lie down in the small city. Struggling hard and realizing one's self-worth in life is non-existent. The equipment maintenance unit operates from 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening, with a fairly regular schedule. After work, they start making their favorite food, playing games, reading novels, fishing, and swimming, which is quite enjoyable. I don't have enough money, but I never work overtime. No big deal, spend less. Work overtime and night shift. What should I do if I'm exhausted? He rarely cares about his parents, they all scold him for not being successful and look like they don't argue with him. He still doesn't care. What does it mean to be indifferent to him when I was a child and now put on an attitude of treating him as if he were my own? The older he gets, the more he understands that his parents don't love him. Even if he's gone now, his parents won't shed much tears. That world, he no longer cares. This world has come anyway, live a good life. Charlotte, we are brothers. Don't be so polite. As the Tauren spoke, the palm as big as a fan was about to press on Charlotte's shoulder. Charlotte instinctively took a step back. Then I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Opro, my body has just recovered, but I can't withstand your slap. Opro, in animal language, means the second son of the Lop family who lives by the lake. After absorbing the memories of the original owner, he gradually understood that although he was also an orc, the gap between the orcs was still very large. His height of about 1.8 meters is considered decent in the human world, but the orc tribe that started at 2 meters is synonymous with waste. Being an orc can bully him. Only the two brothers, the bull-headed man and the dog-headed man, are not very clever and willing to play with him. After being beaten up and unable to get out of bed, he came to see him as soon as possible and vowed to avenge him. What they probably didn't know was that their good friend Charlotte had already been replaced. Charlotte, are you hungry? The dog-headed man Naruchi took out a black and unappealing piece of meat from his beastly skin bag, and before Charlotte could speak, his saliva had already dripped onto it. Charlotte felt nauseous and hurriedly waved her hand, saying, "You eat, I'm not hungry. Then I'll eat it myself." Just as Naruchi was about to put the meat into his mouth, Apro's big hand suddenly grabbed it and said, "Leave some for me." "Not much. Not much." Naruchi turned his back and quickly stuffed everything into his mouth. "Oh," Apro looked at the bulging cheeks of the dog-headed man Naruchi and said in frustration, "Mother Earth is above me, how could I have brothers like you? Apro, you can be full by eating grass." Naruchi shouted. "Stop making trouble." Charlotte impatiently waved his hand, his head really hurting from these two chattering words. "Let's go, let's find something to eat with you. This land, in the eyes of humans, belongs to a land of bitter cold, but in reality, there is a thick layer of black humus under the feet, which is fat and oily. Lakes and rivers, forests and grasslands, colorful. In spring and summer, throwing a tree stick into the river can knock out a fish. In Charlotte's view, it is impossible to lack food. Most importantly, after possessing the memory of the original owner, he discovered that walking eastward for 3 days and 3 nights would reveal a blue sea and soft sandy beach. Even if you only guard the infinite treasure of the sea, you won't starve to death. He couldn't understand why the surrounding orc tribes and villages were so poor. "Are you looking for something to eat?" The Tauren's eyes shone brightly. "Pull some vines." Charlotte pointed to a large tree not far away, with round vines hanging straight from the crown, enchanting and colorful. The bull and dog-headed people didn't ask why, but came forward and pulled a bunch down. Charlotte sat at the bottom of a big tree and began to weave baskets, a craft he had learned from his grandfather. After his grandfather passed away, he wove the willow baskets that his grandmother kept for chickens, ducks, and geese. "I just never tried using tree vines. Without bamboo knives, it all depends on 2 hands." Fortunately, he is an orc with good physical quality. He can also twist the rattan with thick wrists into a fried dough twist shape. In no time, it was woven into a basket with large gaps and not very aesthetically pleasing. "But I can't care so much anymore, as long as it's useful." He walked directly to the river and covered the basket in the water. Before he could react, Apro shouted loudly, "Fish, fish." The fish splashed a few times in the basket, upstream against the current, and as it was about to disappear from sight, Apro reached out his big hand and held the big fish in his arms, foolishly happy. Charlotte took a closer look and saw that the common thornfish in the Rue River weighed at least 5 pounds. As he was feeling this was a treasure trove of feng shui, water splashed again in the basket. Naruchi lowered his head and picked up a big fish, no smaller than the one in Apro's hand. "Enough to eat." Charlotte is very satisfied. Just as spring started, there was still a chill in the water. He didn't want to stay any longer and was about to go ashore, but he didn't want Apro to say, "Here, I can continue catching fish." "Okay." Charlotte didn't pay much attention to him anymore. After landing, he had the dog-headed man start a fire with a flint, without digging the fish's internal organs, and directly roasted it with a wooden stick. Charlotte herself is also hungry. "I can't wait anymore." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Charlotte's Friends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Charlotte's friends. Apro held a wooden gun in one hand and a basket in the other, shouting excitedly in the water. He caught one and threw it onto the shore. Without much effort, the grass was filled with more than a dozen fish. As he watched Charlotte and Naruchi take big bites, especially when the aroma accidentally rushed into his nose, he became even more impatient and hurriedly ran ashore. Taking the wooden stick handed over by Charlotte, which was splashing with fish, he was not afraid of being scalded. He bit it in one bite, starting from the head of the fish until the tail entered his stomach. He didn't see any fish bones sticking out. Although she had known it was so, when Charlotte saw this scene, she was still shocked. Hello, Tauren, you are a herbivorous animal. Making livestock also requires following the basic law. Even if it's eating meat, don't be so scary, right? Scare orcs, okay. Charlotte, what did you add, so fragrant? Opro was still unsatisfied with his food, his eyes fixed on the fish that Naruchi was roasting, reluctant to move away. I added some spices. After Charlotte arrived here, she ate 3 days of tasteless orc food. Wheat husks, grilled meat, and dried meat, but due to poverty, she didn't even add salt. So close to the sea, there is actually a shortage of salt. The original owner never thought about it, but when he came, he couldn't figure it out. Food is pure and natural, with its original flavor. He really can't accept it. Yesterday he started wandering in the forest, suspecting that his eyes were blurred. How could there be Baiji and Fennel in the other world? The most important thing is that they only look similar, not exactly the same, and are noticeably larger and more robust. It wasn't until he had the courage to put it in his mouth and try it out that he was sure, that's right. I dried it in the sun this afternoon, crushed it with stones this morning, put it in a beast skin bag, and carried it with me. When grilling the fish, I put it directly on it. I had my first bite of food since crossing over. With Baiji and Fennel, will chili peppers and Sichuan peppercorns still be far behind? Thinking of this, he became even happier. There is still hope in life. Spices. Opro's eyes widened as he exclaimed in disbelief, those damn human vendors are selling at such a high price that no one can afford except for the clan chief. So little, how dare they sell a silver coin? Last time, they drove the iron monster too fast, otherwise everything would have been ours. Is there such a thing? Charlotte tried hard to recall that those human vendors were indeed driving the iron monsters from the orc population, accompanied by roaring sounds and constantly emitting black smoke. Connecting memories deep in his brain, he unconsciously blurted out a sentence, the steam age. Stunned and speechless. Yes, steam, steam. The dog-headed man loudly agreed, the clan chief said it's a steamed car. Magical. Charlotte scratched his very dissatisfied bald head. What kind of magical world is this? Steam, humans, tribes. A complete hodgepodge. I don't want to, let's eat first. He ate 2 fish in one go. Lying on my back on the green grass, letting the sunlight shine on my swollen belly, is the perfect time for a nap. My eyes were already squinting, and I was suddenly awakened by Naruchi's cry. Durand, you idiot. A despicable giant. Naruchi's voice grew louder and louder. Charlotte opened her eyes and found a pile of meat hills standing in front of her, with a bloated belly and an ugly twisted face. Orcs call them giant demons, a humanoid species that are not recognized by orcs. The dwarves call them orcs. And humans, they are called ogres. In fact, they don't eat people. Based on the biological knowledge she had learned in her previous life, Charlotte believed that they should have Down syndrome, with special features and dull eyes, possibly due to the breeding of close relatives of orcs. But it's not so certain. After all, the giant demon has developed so well. Everyone is 7 or 8 meters tall, and Charlotte is 1.8 meters tall, standing in front of them, almost like a child. There is a lot of pressure. Charlotte, Charlotte, 5 giants saw Charlotte and roared together. Birds flew out of the dense forest in fear, and thorny fish jumped out of the water. Alright, you want to eat fish, right? Then come and eat. Charlotte finally realized that the original owner had already taken these giant demons as his younger brothers. The breeding ability of the orc is terrible. The original owner has 10 brothers and sisters. He is the 7th child in his family, and there are 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. Each of them is more powerful than him. He is the thinnest and weakest one in the family, and has been disliked since childhood. In the tribe, this is even more so. This kind of growth environment makes his behavior and thoughts a bit extreme. The more you look down on me, the more I want to confront you. No farming, no hunting, no production. Having nothing to do, there is only time left, and even when idle, one can still be idle, making brothers and brothers with this group of IQ-deficient giants, Tauren, and Doghead. Plan a no capital business together. Finally, they encountered an opportunity. A few days ago, he finally bravely stopped a caravan with a giant, a dog-headed man, and a bull-headed man. Unfortunately, there was a 6th-level knight inside, who could compete with the giant Durand. The remaining caravan mercenaries attacked the 3 orcs. The end result is that the giant Durand's face is scratched by the 6th-level knight, the Tauren is beaten and screams loudly, and the doghead runs away directly. The original owner landed it in a box before it opened, giving Li Jiangwen a discount. After crossing over, he became very distressed. How can he continue to maintain the character of an orc and a scumbag? Otherwise, a sudden change in personality can easily arouse suspicion from everyone. If you want to eat fish, eat it. Charlotte glared at the dog-headed man who was still clamoring. When we were fighting, you ran the fastest. Do you still have the face to blame Durand? At the critical moment, if it weren't for Durand protecting him, he would have been chopped into flesh and mud by a second-order knight long ago. Finally, it was Durand who held him in his arms, holding the Tauren in one hand, and escaped from the danger. Mother Earth is up, Charlotte. I was really just too nervous at the time. Naruchi's face was covered in fur, and as he shook it off, his narrow, almost invisible eyes could be revealed. Charlotte ignored him and stood on tiptoe, trying to hand the grilled string of fish to Durand, who was still staring with his head down. Other giants couldn't wait for the fish meat to be cooked, so they fiercely gnawed at the raw fish on the ground. The red fish blood hung at the corners of their mouths, and they couldn't bear to waste it. They extended their crimson tongues and rolled their mouths around. It didn't take much time to finish, and then it roared and jumped into the water. The river only reached their waist, and their fists, which were not much smaller than baskets, smashed wildly in the water. The thornfish jumped out of the water, but before they could react, they jumped directly into their open mouths. I ate almost everything and threw all the remaining fish into the fire. The fragrance permeates the grasslands and dense forests. P.S. This is my first time writing about this topic. I lack experience and confidence. I am young, seeking milk, seeking votes, and taking care of my older brothers and sisters. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Dreams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Dreams. After being armed with core values and scientific materialism, the mind enters the brain of the original owner, whose knowledge are very limited. Two different souls and thoughts combine, opening the door to a new world. Charlotte finally understood why the giants' actions of catching and grilling fish were so heartbreaking. Due to their lack of intelligence, giants do not know how to farm, breed, mine, or engage in any production. They are simply the complete porters of nature. Due to their large size and clumsy physique, their walking movements can be perceived as dangerous by surrounding animals only 2 miles away. They are unable to hunt normally like orcs, and occasionally, with good luck, they can use shotguns and stones to hit the unrestrained squirrels on trees and birds soaring in the sky. Most of the time, they can only go down the river to catch fish and eat them raw. Just because the original owner often helps them light a fire and grill fish, they have a sense of trust in the original owner. The original owner was really not out of kindness, he was completely coerced. When he was very young, he, along with his brothers the dog-head man and the bull-head man, grilled fish well by the river. As a result, Durand arrived. At that time, although Durand was not yet an adult, he was already over 5 meters old. They didn't even have the courage to resist, and could only watch as all the grilled fish entered Durand's stomach. Afterwards, for the first and second time, they played with these giants. As time passed, they found that the orcs of the tribe were right. Giants are all stupid. Charlotte treated them as servants and manipulated them at will. Even the dog-headed and bull-headed brothers were so arrogant that they could shout and insult the giants at any moment. Thinking of this, Charlotte was frightened and sweated profusely. It's not easy for the three brothers to survive until now. Luck. It all depends on luck to survive until now. Giants are irritable and don't have such a good temper towards other orcs. They tear them apart at the slightest word, and the people in the tribe not only see them, but also avoid hearing slightly larger movements. The reason why Durand is so kind to them is because Charlotte fooled him. Everyone is brothers. With the words, brother, Durand accepted all the actions and attitudes of these three second-rate men. When the human knights besieged Charlotte, he also fought to the death to save her. This is not just foolish. It's just a bit unbearable. Charlotte, Charlotte, there was another roar in my ear. Charlotte turned her head and saw a pile of meat mountains running towards her. Out of instinct, he quickly hid behind Durand. That's a group of giant cubs, mostly bear cubs, but they also have a height of 2 or 3 meters. After they found their parents, they happily hung on them. Except for one female giant who happily grabbed the child's shoulder and pressed her heads against each other, the other giants were quite impatient. With a continuous popping sound, each of the cubs was thrown into the river. The river flooded their heads, splashing and screaming. The antelope and elk on the other side of the river, who were carefully drinking water, were scared and scattered. There is indeed a reason why the number of giants is small. The reproductive energy of giants is on par with that of orcs. The 3 treasures and 4 treasures of a baby are daily operations, and everything is done out of instinct. There is no concept of husband and wife, no contraception measures, and one after another. In terms of inheriting experience in taking care of young children, there is basically no such thing. If one doesn't pay attention, the child will disappear. The most important thing is still food. In the season of abundant water and grass, their food is abundant. In winter, four-legged animals are also afraid of the cold, do not walk, do not bask in the sun, and do not have enough energy to talk about love. They hibernate in deep pits and tree holes. The river freezes, and the giant demon cannot catch many fish. Famine is a common phenomenon. The last 10 giant demon cubs do not survive. Charlotte looked at the babies in the water, who were about to die, and wanted to save them in the spirit of modern humanitarianism and helping others, but the weight of each baby was something he couldn't bear. When he was hesitating and didn't know what to do, he only heard Durand roar. Durand took the lead and rushed into the river, while the other 2 giants Ernst and Tango also jumped down. The cubs were promptly thrown ashore, vomiting non-stop on the shore, including many undigested mole corpses. The eyes of the mole remained wide open, unable to close their eyes. One of them was particularly big, and Sherlock felt something was wrong. He covered his nose, endured the ubiquitous stench, took a step forward, squinted his eyes, and upon closer inspection, it was clearly a seal. The Bailu River flows downstream from east to west, heading straight towards the sea. In the memory of the original owner Charlotte, seals often swim upstream and lie on the grass by the shore to bask in the sun. However, Charlotte, who has received scientific education, TikTok and Kwai education, can't figure it out. Isn't it fragrant to stay in the sea? Why bother to search for death in fresh water? After the cubs vomited, their stomachs were empty, and they feasted on the delicious grilled fish again. After eating and drinking, a swarm of bees jumped into the water. Charlotte couldn't help but marvel at the tenacity of their vitality. The Bailu River shines brightly under the sunlight, like a long golden ribbon. The small grass on both sides of the river dares to squeeze their heads out of the fertile black soil, while the poplar is lush and the oak is tall. The wild grapevines stand out on its straight trunk, protected by the green shore. This world is really beautiful. Beautiful and suffocating. He actually wants to leave a mark on himself in this world, and even start a career. Unfortunately, he couldn't help but shiver all over at the thought of the harsh winter. No matter how majestic the orcs are, they have to be wrapped in 4 or 5 layers of animal skin. They still dare not go out, hiding in burrows, thatched cottages, stone houses, and caves, trembling and trembling. Beside them is a burning pile of thick smoke. He is a little barbarian living by the Huai River. The coldest winter is only -10 degrees. How could I possibly withstand the harsh winter in front of me? Orcs, like giant demons, lack food in winter, but one thing is stronger than giant demons. They won't starve their offspring. For Charlotte, survival is not a problem. The problem is how to live comfortably and comfortably. The few stone houses at home and the meager income from production labor could not support his growing desire. Without air conditioning, watermelon, and Wi-Fi, he can't bear it anymore. If he still can't eat enough or wear warm clothes, he might as well not travel through time and just die. The only way is to expand production scale. Ensure comfortable drinking and eating meat in winter. Dreams must exist. In this cruel and beautiful world, do you deserve to make salted fish? There is a dead end. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Self-Reliance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Self-Reliance. As a socialist newcomer born in the new century, he must pursue progress. Durand, take me to your lair. In the past, Charlotte did not have the courage to go to the residence of the giant demons. Apart from Durand and others, there was another group of giant demons who were not as friendly to Charlotte as Durand. The only time I've been there was a few days ago when I was knocked down by a human caravan. After Durand saved him and the Tauren, he took them to the giant's residence. When he woke up, he opened his eyes and saw a group of small mountain-like giant demons, whose stench almost knocked him out again. If it weren't for accepting the memories of the original owner, I would have cried on the spot. Now seriously thinking about it, it seems that the canyon where giant demons reside can be used for farming. Charlotte, Charlotte, Durand repeated this sentence repeatedly, but his understanding was still barely there. He turned around and took Charlotte to his place of residence. The cubs of the giant demon also quickly ran out of the river and crowded behind him. The ancient trees towered in the sky, desolate and quiet. Charlotte, what's so beautiful about those filthy giant demon dwellings? Opro complained as he walked. He also woke up a few days ago at the residence of the giant demon, but now he still has lingering palpitations and doesn't want to set foot again. If you don't want to, you can go home now. Charlotte gave the Tauren a dissatisfied glare. Charlotte, the mother of the earth is above, I will always follow your footsteps. The dog-headed man Naruchi said loudly. Ha, Opro laughed and said, from the moment you started running away, you were no longer favored by the Mother Earth, cowardly dog-headed man. Damn bullhead, are you cursing me? Even in anger, Naruchi couldn't keep his eyes open. Shut up. Charlotte couldn't bear these two stupid guys. Humph. The bull-headed man and the dog-headed man exchanged a glance and continued to catch up with Charlotte, who had already run ahead. Giant demons are tall and clumsy in their movements. They are not suitable for living in dense and steep mountains, and are prone to being trampled and thrown into mud if not noticed. They are also not suitable for living in flat areas where there is no escape. The most suitable place is still the canyon, with caves and hidden rivers, providing them with a place to hide from the wind and rain, whether it's rainy spring and summer or cold winter. Most of the giant demons in the entire Bollinger Valley reside here. The quantity is unknown, but it must be quite significant. In my memory, during that harsh winter, Charlotte was only 9 years old. At that time, the Orc King Lin Gang had just ascended to the throne. Because his beloved second daughter, Princess Yushir, was captured by humans as a pet, in a fit of anger, he called on the Orc tribes to go south. This king is determined to attack, to make humanity pay the price. The hungry and cold giant demons in the Bollinger Valley also formed a team of over 100, merging with the giant demons from other inhabited areas of the Orc Kingdom, and marched into human territory in a grand manner. Encountering a human city, charging ahead and eating behind, the thick and high walls that cannot be climbed are smashed open with your head. Even if your head is broken and bleeding, you don't care at all, creating a gap for the Orc troops with their families to attack. Charlotte was tied to her back by her second sister, Cydia, and rushed into the human city. As she saw with her own eyes, the giant demons were fighting, the Orcs were searching for food, and the goblins were searching for gold and silver treasures. I only heard humans shouting. Beast tied. The screams were tinged with despair. The peace agreement reached 100 years ago was completely torn apart. Campbell. Charlotte blurted out. This name is the leader of Bollinger Valley goblins. Orcs also do not consider them as their own kind, including Charlotte, and they feel that they are ugly and have never looked at them directly. Now that I have realized it, I am quite curious. Where have all the treasures of those greedy goblins gone? Dirty bastard. The bullhead followed and said, Charlotte, how dare they not come to visit you? I will definitely kill them. What a pity to have been killed. Charlotte laughed heartily. Is it more suitable for goblins to graze and farm than for giant demons? Unconsciously, he followed the giant demon into the depths of the canyon, with unknown caves on either side. As soon as they entered, a group of giant demons surrounded him in the middle, as if he had entered a sheltered alley in a high-rise building, full of shadows. Just as he was feeling uneasy, Durand let out a roar and the giant demons retreated one after another. Charlotte finally breathed in the air and saw the already scarce sunshine. From afar, he could smell the stench of the Durand cave, without any light inside. He didn't want to continue approaching, but with good eyesight, he could clearly see a pair of green eyes in the pitch black. Campbell. Narucci was the first to react and threw himself directly into the hole. Dear Charlotte. His furry face was filled with laughter, and his short and frail body was lifted by Narucci without any resistance. Why are you here? After Charlotte finished asking, she felt regretful. Her words were too foolish. Goblins are not favored by tribes and can easily be killed by orcs. Not only do they dare not live in fertile land, but they also dare not stay on the surface of the desert and can only live in the dark underground. Near the giant demon's lair, no living object dares to approach, even a mole. Goblins are exceptions. They have brains and wisdom, drilling holes next to the giant demon's lair. The winding tunnels connect caves of all sizes, stretching for dozens of kilometers, with entrances and exits everywhere. The clumsy giant demons cannot squeeze in or easily catch them, but instead can make them disguised as their guardians. I heard that you have been attacked by despicable humans. I'm here to express my respect. After being put down by the dog-headed man, the goblin crawled on the ground, appearing very respectful. Get up. Although Charlotte didn't believe his lies, she still lifted him up with an attitude of being kind to humans, orcs, giants, and even goblins. We are brothers, aren't we? Campbell had an incredulous expression on his face. Did this foolish orc be beaten silly by humans, or was it scared silly? How could you say such a thing? Campbell, I really appreciate you. Would you be my brother? Charlotte continued to ask, regardless of his attitude. That's my honor. Campbell placed his hand on his chest and shouted loudly. Very good. Charlotte patted his shoulder, regardless of what the other person was thinking, at least his attitude was good. He continued to circle around the canyon, and this area is indeed suitable for farming. The premise is that it will not be eaten by the giant demon. Upon careful consideration, it's unlikely that he has too little constraint on the giant demon. With a sigh, he walked out of the canyon and said to Campbell, starting today, our brothers are going to do something big. Pointing to the endless grasslands and mountain tunnels in front of me, raising cows and sheep to become rich. Campbell's expression on the fool grew stronger. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Imagining the Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Imagining the future. If he weren't afraid of being beaten up, he would really want to shout at Charlotte. Hey, idiot, you see clearly, we're goblins. Goblins. What do you think about letting us graze? We don't want dignity, do we? Most importantly, isn't there someone standing next to me who is naturally suitable for grazing? Then I couldn't help but glance at the tall Tauren. Do you have any objections? Charlotte asked kindly. Charlotte, the dog-headed man suddenly laughed loudly and said, I assure the mother of the earth that Opro is the natural herder. Yeah, how could I forget about this? Charlotte patted her head in frustration. Why did you forget about Orpro? Grazing is a natural talent of Tauren. That's the favor of the Mother Earth. Opro patted his chest and said proudly. The Tauren are the most faithful believers of the Mother Earth, born close to nature. The first druid on the continent of Oka was the Tauren. This is a gift from the Mother Earth to faithful believers. Campbell followed closely. Can you really take good care of it? Charlotte looked happily at the Tauren. But I don't want to graze. Opro saw that Charlotte was serious and quickly waved his hand. We are friends, aren't we? Charlotte's eyes were filled with sincerity. So I'll give it a try. The Tauren stroked the dense hair under the horns of the cow. That's such a happy decision, then. Charlotte walked towards the still humble goblin with a smiling face and said, Campbell, you are a knowledgeable person. Tell me, where is the best place to graze in the Bollinger Valley? Of course it's a canyon. The goblin answered without hesitation. Are you sure you have enough to feed them? Charlotte scratched her bald head, and the giant demons with bulky bellies next to her made him feel embarrassed. The giant demon's appetite is too great. Any giant demon can eat 2 or 3 sheep, maybe only half full. If he raises sheep in the canyon, he probably raised them for the giant demon. If it were chickens, ducks, and rabbits, they probably wouldn't be able to supply them. The goblin smiled and said, Charlotte, raising them somewhere else, just those wolf cubs and tiger cubs are enough to worry about. That's quite true. Charlotte finally understood why orcs did not raise cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens, and ducks on a large scale. Unable to withstand the ravages of wild animals that often run out of the forest. Raising some chickens and ducks at home is quite good, not enough to attract wild beasts. And, maybe even the hungry giant demon will come knocking. Then he thought of another question, are you sure they won't scare the animals to death? One thing brings down another. Even animals without intelligence have a natural instinctive fear of giant monsters. In this environment, they cannot thrive. When the time comes, each one will be as thin as a stick, and it will not taste good to eat. Charlotte, the canyon is very large, and the giant demon mainly resides in this area. The area in front has a valley surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, and the entrance is narrow. Even me, squeezing in is not easy, and even if I enter, there are swamps everywhere. The giant demon will definitely not step on it. The goblin's unwavering assurance. Is there such a good place? Charlotte looked incredulous and waved her hand, you lead the way. He followed the goblins towards the depths of the canyon, walking narrower and narrower. Less than 2 miles away, Durand was stuck in a crevice in a stone. He shouted angrily, his fists smashed wildly, and the debris flew horizontally. His bald, even brighter than Charlotte's head was suddenly hit by a piece, causing it to break and bleed. He became even more irritable. After exhausting all my strength, I was finally free. I didn't dare to take another step forward. Only Charlotte, along with the goblins, Tauren, and Doghead, continued to move forward. After walking for a while, the dog-headed and bull-headed people could only land on all 4s. Charlotte bent over. The goblins continued to swagger. From afar, Charlotte heard a rumbling sound, and at the entrance, the first thing that caught her eye was the waterfall hanging in the mountain stream. In the thick mist, a beautiful rainbow appeared. Surrounded by lush grass, the farthest mountain is a black spot. The valley floor area is really large, and a few monkeys are jumping up and down on wild fruit trees. When they see unfamiliar orcs entering, they are scared and quickly hide in the nearby rock walls and caves. This is indeed a great place. In such an instant, Charlotte made the decision to build a breeding farm here. Campbell. Charlotte patted his shoulder and said, "We are brothers. Could you please help me find 30 breeding sheep?" Charlotte. The goblin jumped up in fear and said, "There aren't even 30 sheep in the entire tribe. If it's that easy, can I trouble you?" Charlotte rolled her eyes. "I swear to the Mother Earth." Campbell exclaimed, "This is simply impossible. What about wild goats and elk?" Charlotte also knew it was too difficult for the goblins, so she turned to second best. "I can go catch this." After the dog-headed man Naruchi was excited, he couldn't help but ask in embarrassment, "Is it okay to catch him to death?" "No way." Charlotte stood on tiptoe and hugged his shoulder, "I'll leave this task to you from now on." After Charlotte finished speaking, she stopped talking to them. The goblin stretched its neck and looked at Charlotte's disappearing figure, its eyes rolling as it burrowed into an inconspicuous cave next to it. Charlotte separated from the Tauren brothers at the doorstep and looked behind her back at the low stone house, wanting to cry without tears. From childhood to adulthood, 10 children, along with their parents, were all squeezed into this dilapidated house. Later on, the eldest brother became a mercenary with humans, the second brother became the guide of the adventure team, and the 3 sisters got married and moved out, so they didn't appear so crowded. Now there are still parents, 2 younger sisters, and 1 younger brother left at home. But I still feel uncomfortable living there. During these 3 days, Charlotte smelled the stench of her feet and sweat every day, making life more difficult than death. He must change his living environment. Not to mention that the villa is by the sea, at least there needs to be a 3-bedroom living room, right? "Charlotte, you bastard!" A loud shout interrupted Charlotte's reverie. Turning around, I saw his big brother, Kaiser. Strong limbs, wide and round shoulders, high and straight chest, beautiful muscles, and long black hair, shining brightly in the sunlight. The only downside is that the animal marks around the eyes become more prominent with age. Charlotte was envious. They are all raised by one parent, why is the difference so big? The most infuriating thing is that the whole family, including his parents, have hair, but unfortunately he is bald. Big brother. Charlotte looked at Kaiser with an angry expression and chuckled. P.S. New book period, please give it a lot of feedback. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Glory of Orcs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Glory of Orcs. Cathier slowly approached Charlotte and shouted, "How dare you go and be a thief? Shame the family. If you're not my brother, Charlotte, I'll kill you." His loud voice attracted many neighbors who came to watch the excitement. "Charlotte, you dare to snatch the 6th level knight. You are truly a role model for us orcs. Charlotte, great guy. The 6th level knight is comparable to the wolf knight in the kingdom's capital city. This is not dead, you must be the illegitimate son of the Mother Earth." The onlookers were chattering and gossiping. Charlotte rested her hand on her forehead. What about the agreed orc being foolish? Are they all gossiping like this? Taking a glance at Kaiser, who was still on the brink of violence, he countered, "We don't even have a surname, what kind of family is that?" The Orc Kingdom, apart from the royal family and the inherited orcs, basically has no surname. Even the name is quite casual. For example, his name, the entire Bollinger Valley, is called Charlotte. There are not 100, there are also 90. The meaning of orc language is The son of a blizzard. To put it simply, there is no culture. Haha. Seeing Kaiser eat his food, a group of orcs laughed even louder. Kathier, you've spent too much time with those stinky humans and learned a lot. A strong man who was nearly 3 meters tall took the opportunity to mock and said, only those hypocritical humans care about these things. Loki, if we orcs want to be rich and strong, we must learn from humans. 300 years ago, they had already entered the steam age. There were cars that didn't require manpower or livestock, factories that could produce 1,000 pieces of clothing per day, machines forging swords, and we were still wrapped in animal skins, holding bone sticks. For 300 years, there has been no progress at all. Kathier's face turned red with displeasure. The other orcs laughed even louder as they listened. Only Charlotte, after listening, was lost in thought. There is a certain tone in his older brother's voice. Foolish people. What can I do to save you? Can you be considered a wise person among the orcs, the world's #1 person when you open your eyes? Huh, Kaiser, you forgot how humans were defeated by us 10 years ago. Rocky continued to cover his belly and laugh, in front of our bravery, they are lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Do you forget how many people of our tribe have died? Kaiser said coldly, your father, your uncle, was killed by human cannons under the city wall before he even saw a human face. Kaiser. Rocky let out a loud roar, picked up the bone stick from his back, and glared angrily at Kaiser. What, are you going to duel with me? Refusing to make progress, refusing to learn all advanced knowledge, is true laziness and cowardice, said Kathier disdainfully when she saw Lodge motionless after speaking. He glared at Charlotte and turned around before leaving. Charlotte was very helpless. Who did he provoke? Blame the original owner. Everyone is gone. Ignoring the onlookers, he crawled into his own home. The walls made of stones are uneven, with large gaps filled with moss. They are windproof in winter and rainproof in summer. There was a large mud kong on fire in the room, with worn-out animal skin blankets that could smell the stench from a distance. The whole family was crowded here. Next to it is a stone chisel table, with 2 ceramic jars standing for drinking water. There's nothing else left. The term, family is like a wall, is simply tailor-made for this family. Lying in bed, constantly muttering, take it as it comes, but the stench always keeps drilling into his nose. I can't stand it. A carp straightened up and got off the kong. He can't stay in this house for a moment. As soon as I arrived at the door, I encountered a shadow. Brother. Charlotte followed the voice and looked up at the smiling girl in front of her. I don't want to live anymore. A girl who is over 2 meters long, with only her neck and legs. With a wheat-colored complexion and no excess flesh, the little animal skin hanging on his body is full of wild beauty. He finally understood why those humans had to spend a lot of money on beast women now. Charlotte kept warning herself that this was her own younger sister. Then turn around and leave. The home of the Tauren Opera is by the nearby lake. His father was the only blacksmith in the tribe. 10 years ago, during the war with humans, he made a fortune from the war. After returning, he built 5 wooden houses made of oak and iron trees for his 5 sons, and the living conditions were much better than those of the Charlotte family. Charlotte. The Tauren was digging the ground by the river and was overjoyed to see Charlotte. Charlotte ignored him and walked straight towards the wooden house of the Tauren. After looking around, he said, I'll stay with you for a few days. My brother, you are finally willing to be with me. His thick arms immediately embraced Charlotte. Don't do this. Charlotte tried hard to push the Tauren away, with black lines all over his head. You clean up, it's hot, these broken skins don't need to be used, throw them all away. Ah. The Tauren watched as Charlotte threw all the animal skins on the kong out of the house, feeling very reluctant. They're all new. New. Where did you see something new? Charlotte said angrily, "It's black and moldy, and it still smells so bad. Can't you smell it?" After finishing speaking, I went to the door and used a machete to chop off a pile of chrysanthemum flowers. I reluctantly made a broom and swept it from inside out. Just as I was feeling proud, I heard a roar. "The mother of the earth is above, what kind of son have I given birth to?" Torimo, the old lady of the Tauren, looked at the burning animal skins in the flames and cursed loudly at the door. Charlotte was so scared that she didn't come out of the house and had nothing to do with me. I hope the Tauren can show loyalty and not involve him. "The mother of the earth is above, please. Let this lowly servant return to your side." The old man of the bullhead, Sir Delu, continued to curse. "Uncle, are you cursing your son to die?" Charlotte couldn't bear to listen anymore and finally left the room. The parents of the Tauren both have the appearance of ordinary orcs. Although they do not have the power of bloodline, they have not awakened and failed like Opro, carrying a Tauren. The Tauren have gained power, but lost their beauty. The aesthetic of female orcs with human looks is still online, and they will definitely not marry a Tauren. The ultimate goal of most Tauren marriages is to marry a female Tauren, a female doghead, or a female centaur. What surprised Charlotte was that different orcs intermarried, and there was no reproductive isolation between them, even with elves and humans. Okay, that's quite good. However, the types of characters born are quite strange. Orcs care most about their bloodline, which is what orcs truly deserve glory for. So, when the couple of Shidlu and Turimo thought about the future fate of this son of the Tauren, they became extremely angry. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Love of Licking the Calf. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Love of Licking the Calf. But after all, this is his own son. Over time, they learn to slowly forget. Their greatest expectation is that their son can honestly marry a female Tauren, and in the end, no matter what is born, as long as he is alive and able to speak, he will accept it. As a result, my son is so wasteful now and has burned the animal skin so well. I am very angry. Do you still want to live a life? Orcs who cannot save, especially those who fail to awaken, find it difficult to marry a spouse. Charlotte. Sir Delu saw Charlotte and said even more angrily, "Don't think I don't know anything. 6th level knight. How dare you, such a fool, go. Blessed by the Mother Earth. You're still alive." Upon hearing these words, Charlotte had no confidence at all. "I almost killed someone else's son. What if someone scolds you a few times?" I can only smile and say, "I'm sorry, Uncle Shidlu. I apologize to you." "What bad idea do you have, this stinky kid? Are you so easily softened? The half-horse people in the valley are not as stubborn as you." Charlotte apologizes to herself. Shidlu looked incredulous. "Uncle, I'm serious." Charlotte said sincerely, "I am 19 years old this year, like humans, I have reached adulthood. The lifespan of orcs is theoretically over 100 years. But in reality, in the harsh northern regions, the living environment is harsh, medical care and nutrition cannot keep up, and hunting accidents occur frequently. Those like his father Shidwa and Shidlu, including the leader of the Ballinger Valley, Battis, who can live to be over 60 years old, are considered relatively lucky. Child, I'm all for your good, Sir Delu sighed and said, I hope you find your right direction. The Mother Earth will bless you. Without waiting for Charlotte to say anything, she dragged Aunt Turimo, who still had to speak, straight away. Charlotte watched as the old couple gradually disappeared, only thinking of one word. The love of licking the calf. Whether it's humans or animals. I sighed and didn't think much. In the evening, we caught some fish in the lake with Opro, grilled and ate until we were full, and went straight to sleep. This is the most peaceful sleep he has had since his travels. No noise, no unpleasant odor. When I woke up the next day, I felt refreshed and swam for a long time in the clear and green lake. When he went ashore and put on the animal skin again, Opro had already set up a pottery pot in the fire at the door and cooked thick porridge. Rough and difficult to swallow, Charlotte still held her breath and drank 2 large bowls. "Let's go find Naruchi." After Charlotte finished speaking, she walked towards the depths of the forest. Doghead's parents passed away in a war with humans 10 years ago, leaving him alone. His home is just a tree hole. After hearing the sound, he poked his head out of the tree hole and loudly said, "Charlotte. Did you eat it?" Charlotte asked casually. "Ah." Doghead people are actually unaware of their mistakes. Charlotte has never greeted him like this before. The first thing we usually say when we meet is, "Damn dog-headed person. You didn't eat." Charlotte continued to ask. "Preparing to eat." The dog-headed man lowered his head in shame. "Damn it, dog-headed man, look what I've brought you." Opro put the clay pot full of porridge in front of Naruchi. "Wheat porridge." Naruchi looked incredulous. He and Opro grew up together since childhood, and Opro has never been so generous before. "This is what Charlotte asked me to bring to you." "You damn dog-head, you're not even worthy of eating such good food." The Tauren spoke even louder. "Opro. After Charlotte scolded, we are brothers, aren't we? Why say something embarrassing to each other? I hope you apologize to Naruchi." "Why?" The Tauren widened his eyes. "True brothers need to be united, not hurt each other." Charlotte rode. After thinking for a while, Opro looked at Naruchi and said, "So, dog-headed man, will you accept my apology?" "No." "Damn bullhead." Naruchi finished his last mouthful of porridge and turned his head proudly. "Look, Charlotte. If he doesn't accept my apology, then it's meaningless for me to apologize," said Opro to Charlotte, pointing to the dog-headed man. Charlotte is speechless. "I really didn't know what to say, but after a while, I said, all right, stop talking nonsense and go catch the goats and elk. Remember, you have to live deep in the dense forest." Charlotte, with her 2 generals, tossed and turned all morning, sweating profusely. She didn't catch anything, even the rabbits ran faster than them. Throwing guns and stones, any one of them with that ability would not end up making a $0 purchase, almost being sent to the embrace of the Earth Mother by a human 6th level knight. Hunting is a job that requires intelligence and skill. Call the giant demon over and have them block all the nearby roads. Charlotte gritted her teeth in anger. That bunch of idiots can't do anything. After muttering, Opro saw that Charlotte was angry and hurriedly said, "I'm going." Busy and running away. "Charlotte, what am I doing?" Naruchi asked cautiously. "Look where those goblins are." Charlotte collapsed by an oak tree and said, "Find them, we need help. Many people have great power." "Not right. There are many orcs with great power. I'll go right away." Naruchi landed on all 4s, with a wind-like speed. In the blink of an eye, Charlotte couldn't see his figure anymore. Sure enough, it's a dog. Charlotte chuckled in silence. Unconsciously, he fell asleep under the tree. After hearing the earthquake-like footsteps, I rubbed my sleepy eyes. Durin stood in front of him, with dozens of giant demons behind him and the sleazy Campbell beside him. "Campbell." Charlotte lazily said, "The hunting mission has been entrusted to you. You won't let me down, will you?" "Charlotte, as long as there is Durin's cooperation, the lamb will always be a lamb." Campbell spoke confidently. "Durin." Charlotte let out a shout. "Charlotte, Charlotte," Durin tossed and turned, and that's all he said. Listen to Campbell's command. Charlotte pointed to the goblin and said, "I declare that the hunting operation is now starting. Goats and elk, who are alive, are not allowed to steal food." "Charlotte! Charlotte!" The giant demon roared again. It means they understand what Charlotte means. Don't be fooled, start your performance. Charlotte couldn't help but kick Campbell as she looked at his despicable appearance. Charlotte, don't worry. Even if Campbell was kicked, he was still overjoyed. He couldn't believe that he would have a day to give orders to the giant demon. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Ox People and Ox Matters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Ox People and Ox Matters. Goblins are the lowest level of orcs, and on weekdays, they even hide from other ordinary orcs, let alone giant demons. They can enter and exit next to the residence of the giant demon, but they absolutely dare not get too close. Yesterday and today, if it weren't for Charlotte being here, they would definitely not have appeared, but they never thought that one day the giant demons would have a day of foolishness towards themselves. Oh my, this feeling is not bad. You have made contributions to the Orc King's country and suffered injuries for the Orc King. I know your abilities. Charlotte naturally praised without hesitation, that's all for your hard work. Please make sure to use all your intelligence and talent. Goblins are a subspecies of orcs, with a very casual appearance and body shape. If there are any characteristics, they are thin, weak, and ugly. Those who look ugly are called goblins. Similar to dogs, any dog without breed characteristics is referred to as a local dog. Not only do humans call them that, but orcs also call them that. Classifying them with ugly guys is really embarrassing. It's a shame for orcs. The most incredible thing is that fungal beasts are all classified as goblins. Nature is fair, although it has given them ugly and frail bodies, it has also given them the advantage of hybridization. The proportion depends on bloodline inheritance, and ordinary orcs bred in close proximity are too smart. Charlotte. Campbell was very excited, propping up his thin and weak chest, and loudly said, I swear to the Mother Earth that I will not disappoint your expectations. Go ahead. Pikachu. Charlotte smiled and waved her hand. I didn't keep up. After running all morning, although his bare foot had not been blistered, it had caused him great suffering. There were grass, mountains, swamps, forests, and all sorts of things, and he would accidentally get pricked. He lacks the spirit of hard work and can't bear it. This will still cause pain. Lying on the grass, holding in his mouth the rotting heart grass unique to the northernmost tip of the continent of Oka. This is the favorite of split-hoofed cattle. Under the sunlight, squinting his eyes, the ants woke him up. Stretching lazily, only 2 giant demon cubs were left next to grilling fish. Kuma. Charlotte shouted at Durin's son. Charlotte. Kuma placed a grilled, half-cooked fish in front of Charlotte. You can keep it for yourself to eat. The fishy smell almost made Charlotte stumble and she stepped back. Do you know where they went? Ah. Kuma called out twice and ran away, with Charlotte yawning and following behind. This is in the direction of the Bailu River. Far away, he could hear a deafening roar mixed with some clearly animal screams. Charlotte slapped her head in frustration. I'm so stupid. At the beginning of spring, there is abundant water and grass, which is the season when animals come out to forage, make up for winter losses, and replenish energy, especially on both sides of the Bailu River. There is nothing more suitable for hunting than here. After leaving the forest, upon closer inspection, rhinoceroses, hippopotamuses, elk, antelopes, and even the gentle kodo beasts were all scrambling on both sides of the river. Thousands of goblins holding bone sticks, iron tools, and wooden sticks, combined with fierce giant demons, chased them to the heavens without a way or a door to the earth. Many of them jumped into the river, unfamiliar with its water nature, struggling to the brink of death, flowing downstream. However, they were picked up one by 3 female giant demons lying in the middle of the river and thrown onto the shore. Before they could start vomiting, the goblins immediately approached and tied their hands and feet with vines. Charlotte looked dumbfounded. What is a major? This is called professionalism. Charlotte. Campbell ran over despicably and raised his head, saying, "As I said, I won't let you down. We have captured 120 wild goats, 30 elk deer, 20 wild boars, and 3 Kudwa beasts, so much." Charlotte's excitement was beyond words. The abilities of the goblins far exceeded his expectations. Charlotte. Opro ran to Charlotte and pointed to the 3 bound Cordonian beasts. "I can hear their cries, so I unconsciously want to shed tears," he said. He kept rubbing the corners of his eyes. "You said you let them go." Charlotte still understood his meaning. "Charlotte, Kodo beasts are also our companions," said Opro with a hint of embarrassment. The goblin hurriedly said, "The meat of the Kudwa beast is old and woody, it's not delicious." "Your partner is also my partner," Charlotte smiled and said, "You go comfort them." "Thank you, Charlotte. I swear to the Mother Earth that the Kodo beasts will surely sacrifice their loyalty." The grateful way of the Tauren. Charlotte could feel his sincerity. In the end, nothing was said. "I saw the Tauren walking up to the Kodo beast." The Kodo beast, which was still struggling, was touched by the Tauren's palm like a fan, and then suddenly quieted down. When the Tauren untied their vines, they lay obediently beside them. Charlotte looked a bit envious. This kind of talent is really amazing. Next night, wild goats were sent into the canyon basin. The 3-headed Kudwa beasts became the mounts of the 2 generals, Charlotte and Humph. Wild boars, elk, and other wild beasts entered the stomachs of goblins and giant demons, but they had not enough to eat yet. The thornfish in the river suffered once again. Orcs are good at drinking, but their ability to make wine is poor. Fruit wine made from wild fruits is extremely bitter. Watching the giant demons and goblins drinking happily, Charlotte couldn't help but drink half of the pottery jar. After feeling dizzy after drinking, I regretted it a bit. After dark, the sky was filled with stars. The goblin burrowed into the underground cave. Charlotte lay lazily under the oak tree, along with the giant demons such as Durand, with the 2 generals of Hemha. No one added firewood, the fire gradually extinguished and white smoke scattered. Charlotte was about to call everyone back to their homes and search for their mothers when she noticed the dog-headed man standing up, and the 3-headed Kodo beasts next to him also let out a whimper. While Charlotte was still wondering what was going on, the sound of weapon handover had already reached his ears. "Someone is fighting," Naruchi reminded. "It's not personal, hang high. Charlotte doesn't want to join in this fun. Turn around and you're about to leave." But I didn't want to hear a familiar voice. "Hurry up, cross the river quickly. I'll cut off the rear." This roar seemed to have exhausted all his strength. "Kaiser." Charlotte was uncertain and uncertain. "It's Brother Kaiser," the dog-headed person said with great certainty. The Tauren also nodded and said, "Shall we go over? Kathier is in trouble, I don't know where the bastard is from." Durand. "Save my big brother first." As soon as Charlotte finished speaking, Durand jumped directly into the river, followed closely by the other giant demons. The Tauren and others have already crossed the river. Charlotte was still lamenting by the river how cold the early spring water was. As soon as she entered the water, she couldn't help but take a step back, while the Tauren had already turned back, holding a person in both hands. "Kaiser is injured," the bullhead exclaimed loudly. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Discrimination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Discrimination. Charlotte thought she wouldn't care at all, but when she heard that Kaiser was injured, she couldn't help but tremble and become nervous. Is this the feeling of blood connection? Kaiser. Charlotte asked the Tauren Opro to carefully place him on the ground, under the moonlight. The blood on his chest shimmered, indicating that he had less intake and more output. His heart was gripping in agony. "Charlotte, don't worry about me. Let Durand and his team save my friend." Kaiser tightly gripped his wrist, even with all his strength, his voice remained quiet. Hello, rest well, don't worry about anything else. Charlotte turned her head to Proudo the Tauren and said, tell Durand and the others to catch them all alive. In the pitch black, the giant demon's intelligence is almost indistinguishable between enemy and self, especially when he goes crazy. It would be embarrassing if he were to destroy his brother's friend group. I'll go. I'll go. Campbell somehow got his head out of the tree hole and quickly went down again. In no time, his voice came from across the river. I'll go make a fire. The Tauren are not too foolish either. The just extinguished fire once again ignited a blazing fire, surrounded by a glimmer of light. Charlotte, Charlotte. The giant demons roared again, dragging the prisoners who had been bound by the goblins across the river. The prisoners were unable to resist, and even when the giant demons accidentally trapped them in the river, they could only weakly scream and the blood stained the river red. When they were thrown ashore, they were all bleeding and spitting water from their mouths. One of the girls caught Charlotte's attention. Although her whole body was dirty, her graceful figure and snow-white skin were still exposed. He didn't pay much attention, but his main focus was on the girl's ears. Elves. The original owner had seen them before, including mercenaries, adventure groups, and caravans. It's just that it's the first time I've seen the traveler Charlotte, and it's still a bit unbelievable and shocking. Elves, like orcs, value their bloodline and appearance. The ugly half-breed among orcs is called a goblin, while the ugly half-breed among elves is called a dark elf. They are not blessed by the gods of nature and, like goblins, can only live in the dark and dark underground. Unlike goblins who rely on orc tribes, the dark elves form their own faction and often engage in wars with self-proclaimed orthodox elves. A word of disagreement is like a river of blood. Charlotte used to love listening to the gossip of a wandering minstrel who lived from all over the world. Charlotte's limited knowledge about the vast external world was largely obtained through the population of wandering poets. The wandering minstrels belonged to a special existence on the continent of Oka, with a high reputation in both the Orc kingdom, elves, and humans. Even orcs generously donate to human wandering minstrels. At that time, Charlotte was so poor that she couldn't bring out a copper coin, but she didn't want to lose face in front of the wandering poets. She often hunted prey and gave it to them. The wandering bards who eat this kind of food are also imaginative. They vigorously mock human greed and the ignorance and arrogance of elves in the Orc kingdom, and speak confidently about the foolish deeds of orcs in the human world. They reveal the latest news and developments of humans and orcs to elves with higher cultural levels. Exquisite in all aspects. I will never discuss the topic of orcs in the Orc kingdom, otherwise with the sensitive self-esteem and irritable temper of orcs, it would be like touching the head with a knife and marrying a mouse to a cat. Afyu, are you okay? With the help of Charlotte, Kaiser walked up to the elf. Your teammates? Charlotte asked. Yes, Kathier endured the pain of the wound and picked up a knife to cut open the vines on Buff's hands and feet. As soon as she exerted force, the knife fell from her hand and collapsed on the ground. Charlotte said to Campbell, you come. As soon as Campbell approached, the elf Afyu loudly said, dirty goblins, don't get close to me. Afyu. A middle-aged man lying on his side on the ground scolded the elf, they saved us. With a strong figure, sharp edges, and deep eyes, whether it's a female or male lead, or even a domineering executive drama, he is the perfect male lead's appearance. Charlotte touched her bald head. Ah! This damn jealousy. Big brother, I'll take you home. Since they don't recognize good people, Charlotte is too lazy to care about them. Kaiser is injured. The middle-aged man became anxious when he saw that Charlotte was leaving and continued, we need treatment, otherwise it's easy to leave a disability. As far as I know, Kaiser's status in the tribe is not high, and your orc shaman priests cannot take action to heal him. Please untie my hands and feet, I have healing potion here, I'm a dirty orc, Charlotte sneered, aren't you afraid I'll tarnish you? Charlotte. Charlotte. Durand could feel Charlotte's anger and scream along with it. I apologize to you on behalf of my teammates. My name is Palermo. The middle-aged man was startled by the huge aura of the giant demon, afraid that the opponent's thick-boned stick would hit him. He had just suffered a lot and said, "Captain of the glorious mercenary corps, we will definitely repay the kindness of saving lives. How many gold coins are you planning to give?" Charlotte's eyes lit up. He is now so poor that he doesn't have a single copper coin all over his body. Charlotte. Kaiser said helplessly, "They are my teammates, my friends." "But they are not my friends." Charlotte deflated in disdain. For these teammates of Brother Chin, he had already saved them, but he didn't need to be so accustomed to pulling them so hard. "Should I slaughter or should I slaughter? I'll give you 20 gold coins." Palermo gritted his teeth. "Only 20. Although Charlotte was excited in her heart, her tone still carried a hint of dissatisfaction. "Where are we going to send the beggars?" 50. "This is all we have." The bitter road of Palermo. That's such a happy decision. Charlotte gave Campbell a wink. Campbell stepped forward and chopped off the vines on Palermo. Palermo immediately got up and tore the rope of their teammates with their hands. 7 or 8 people stood together, vigilantly watching the giant demon next to them like a small mountain. They can't figure out what this orc has to command so many giant demons. In general, only the shaman high priest of the orc kingdom has this possibility. 10 years ago in that war, the giant demon was fearless under the control of the shaman high priest. Those who have experienced that war still remember vividly now. Campbell. Charlotte pointed to the 5 humans on the ground who had not been freed by Palermo. "It's probably the enemy chasing them. If I miss a copper coin, even the Mother Earth won't forgive me." Campbell began to search the person tied to the ground. He is professional in this. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Maximum Value. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Maximum Value. Goblin Campbell deliberately bent over and carried the people of Palermo, groping among the prisoners on the ground, and the smile on his furry face became increasingly difficult to conceal. He has never encountered such a great harvest before. Charlotte waited for Campbell to finish his search and came back with a pile of things. She took out a wintergreen wood from his arms and looked at the sparkling gemstone on it in the firelight. She exclaimed in surprise, "Is this a magic wand?" Campbell placed the things in his arms in front of the Tauren, accompanied by a smiling face, and said, "Charlotte, how knowledgeable you are. Unfortunately, it was only used by a magic apprentice. Can barely sell for 200 gold coins, isn't this cheap?" This touches on Charlotte's knowledge blind spot. If it's oak, it's even more expensive, at least 220 gold coins. If there were better elemental ores. That's starting at 300. When Campbell was feeling proud, he found that the elf Afu had already wielded her sword and walked towards the prisoners. She exclaimed loudly, "Elves, they are already Charlotte's slaves, naturally Charlotte's property. What are you going to do?" If it were normal, with his courage, he wouldn't dare to talk to the elves like this. Being insulted means being insulted, and that's how goblins are born. The lowest level of the continent of Oka. But now with so many giant demons in front of him, he is not afraid of anyone. Dirty goblins. You are indeed so greedy. The elf snorted coldly, "I'm going to kill them. Do you want to stop them? Duel with me." Afu. Palermo looked at Charlotte with a gloomy face, then at the giant demon next to him. They had already emerged from the nearby tree hole and dungeon, surrounded by more and more goblins. They walked up to Afu and whispered, "Let's heal our wounds first." Speaking, he took out a green bottle from his chest, dripped a drop into his mouth, and then handed it to his teammate next to him. The last one to be treated is Kaiser. Charlotte could see clearly from the side. None of these mercenaries take his big brother Cathier seriously. I saved them myself, and in front of me, these mercenaries didn't even do a scene. And then I accidentally noticed Cathier's gaze at the elf Afu. What is the situation? Is this supposed to be a licking dog? And with a domineering CEO next to him. Is it compatible? Palermo. They damn it. Afu's voice grew louder and she turned to Charlotte, Orcs. Kill them, the god of nature bestows you glory. I am a believer in the Mother Earth. Charlotte was too lazy to pay much attention to her and walked up to the uneasy magical apprentice wearing a wizard's robe lying on the ground. I don't know each other, I have no grievances or grudges, and I will definitely not harm you. Give me a condition that I cannot refuse, and I will let you go, she said, Orcs. The speaker was a muscular middle-aged man. I am Benedetta, the commander of the Tiger Mercenary Regiment, the third largest mercenary regiment in the Moran Empire. Our base is across the river, and we are willing to offer 1,000 gold coins. Please accept our friendship. 1,000 gold coins. Charlotte's eyes lit up. However, I am still quite worried that I have a life to earn but no money to spend. The third largest mercenary group in the Moran Empire is definitely not a chicken. After all, minstrels often sing their names. If we don't eradicate the root cause and leak it out, can we end up doing well? Benedetta saw Charlotte's eyes flicker and hesitated, then hurriedly said, I swear to the goddess of light that our friendship will never change color. I accept your friendship. Seeking wealth insurance, Charlotte decided to give it a go. Orcs. Afu expressed dissatisfaction. Charlotte. They're not trustworthy, Cathier said urgently. I don't believe anyone. Charlotte shook her head and pointed to the giant demon next to her. I only trust my brothers. After being a licking dog, he is no longer worthy of being his brother. This is a wise decision. Benedetta breathed a sigh of relief. My life has been saved. Turn your bound hands towards Campbell and say, please let me lead the way for you. After using a knife to remove his restraints, Campbell quickly hid behind Durand. Humans are shameless, who knows if they will suddenly attack. There's no need to lead the way. You can send someone, 1,000 gold coins. If he doesn't come back before the fire goes out, I will hand you over to the high priest as a sacrifice. Going deep into a tiger's den is something that Charlotte is still unwilling to do. Thank you for your kindness. Benedetta untied the hands and feet of a soldier next to him and whispered a few words. The soldier hesitated for a moment, then plunged into the river and disappeared. Orcs, thank you for taking the initiative to save us. At this point, Palermo had nothing to say. He took out a bag of gold coins from his pocket and said, we're leaving now. May the goddess bless you. When Charlotte picked up the heavy gold coins, bypassed the huge shadow of the giant demon, and left directly, the others followed closely behind. Cathier first looked at Charlotte and then at Eve, who was gradually moving away. Charlotte, she said, my brother, in a moment of hesitation. I didn't know what to say. I sighed and followed the members of the glorious mercenary corps directly. Damn licking the dog. Charlotte was very angry. Charlotte, my tongue can only lick, is that also wrong? Said the dog-headed man Narucci, feeling aggrieved. It has nothing to do with you. Charlotte waved her hand and said, go across the river and observe. If there's anything wrong, we'll just run away. Before Narucci could agree, the nearby goblin leader Campbell said, the goblins have already reported the news. The human camps are 10 miles away from here, with less than 20 people. With Durand and the others around, we don't need to worry about anything. Then I'll lie down for a while longer. Charlotte was so tired that she lay down and fell asleep again. When he woke up, a cloth bag was already placed in front of him, and the members of the Tiger Mercenary Corps sat quietly there. Orcs. Benedetta stood up and said, please accept my friendship. 1,000 gold coins, all counted. Campbell rode. Then you guys go. Campbell opened his pocket and Charlotte looked at the sparkling gold coins inside, waving her hand in a grand manner. Before leaving, Benedetta and the group bowed to Charlotte and others again. The villain is more polite than the righteous. Charlotte couldn't help but sigh. Campbell, I'll leave these coins to you for safekeeping. Ah! Campbell is unbelievable. When did Charlotte trust him so much? Since yesterday, we have been brothers. The Orc tribe, which is still completely in primitive society, has complete circulation of gold, silver, copper, including elemental minerals, just like in the human kingdom. However, there is nothing easy to buy in the tribe. There are only a few things that Orcs can sell. Meat, fur, and herbs. These things, Charlotte casually grabs them in the forest. So, we have to wait for the human caravan to come over before this money will be useful. Why don't you let Campbell hide in the cave first? He distrusts the character of goblins. If he only trusts his own strength and the goblin dares to blackmail his money, he dares to dig the goblin's nest. End of this chapter.